friends have before. It's not fun.
So the Windex crows are laughing at you from above. So let me. Is the door not open, or did you just walk in?
No, it's totally open.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. This is going to be on the Facebook page. So anyhow, note to anybody watching this: please make sure you don't walk into the glass. So anyhow, so what we're talking about is we're talking about this notion of pop-up classes, and I really kind of wanted to just kind of tell you all in person that what you're going to see eventually, maybe next semester, is us referring to things as pop-up classes. As we learn how to do these, we want to start referring to them because there are several initiatives that we're working with on VentureWell, and we want to be able to go to them at some point in time and say, yes, we've done X amount of pop-up classes, so you'll probably be seeing those that word at some point in time. So whether that's for credit, not for credit, whatever. We just really kind of wanted to get that word out. So is there anything you wanted to say about a pop-up class before? So anyhow, what do y'all think about that? Like if we started referring to things as pop-up classes, that would that kind of start getting in your all's vocabulary? Because it's a really great, in our opinion, it's a really great umbrella term. It's basically, it could be a seminar, it could be a workshop, it could be a class, it could be for credit, not for credit, whatever. It's just a nice umbrella term. We can say, hey, pop-up class, makerspace, come on in. Right?
Well, I do want to add one thing on that. We have submitted a proposal for a certificate in innovation and entrepreneurship.
Yes, we have.
And it's been approved all at the university. It's going to go to TBR now.
Right.
And I think it's very reasonable to say that it's going to be approved. And then these pop-up classes would be an opportunity. We haven't quite worked the details out, but there'll be an opportunity to count some of the credits that you need for the certificate.
Correct. That is my understanding as well, because as part of, and we'll articulate this more too, but a part of the innovation entrepreneurship certificate is that you actually have experiential components. So there's a certain amount, you actually have to have 18 hours to get the certificate, and 6 of those hours can come
from this.
Yeah, 6 can come from pop-up classes or from the EagleWorks competition. So anyhow, so we'll articulate more of that as soon as it gets fully approved from TBR. But we're really excited about it. We've been working on it for probably about 6 months now.
Oh yeah.
And this is going to be a really great thing for TTU. So basically, we will have a certificate in innovation and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and you can go to a company and sell yourself as, hey, I'm somebody that's, you got a new program you want to launch or something. I've got some training specifically. So hopefully it'll be something. I hope you get that job that you want.
And that will be on your transcript, which is a great thing. But anyhow, don't want to talk about it too terribly much. Don't want to count our chickens before they hatch. But we're really excited because it did get approved on the TTU level, and that's pretty much 3/4 of the work, and then we send it on the TBR for approval. So pretty exciting. So welcome. Thank you all so much for coming today. Really glad to see you all. Before we start, we're going to talk about Business Model Canvas tonight. What questions do we have about the competition itself before we get into that? What are y'all thinking? So everybody's been registered. We have 44 teams. Wow. It's amazing. Thank you all so much for registering. We have definitely cut off the registration. It was on November 13th. Again, if you all need to add members or remove members from your teams, that's totally fine. You can do that up until March. And really right now, I think just make sure that you look at the pinned post that's on Facebook right now, and it'll kind of give you a short timeline of what you should be doing. So right now you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. You're coming to meetings, you're working with your teams. What I wanted to emphasize is don't forget to work over the Christmas break, because that's a long amount of time. If y'all are out for 4 or 6 weeks, something like that.
Well, and what we're going to do, I hope, is, I know we keep saying company, small business, business model, business plan. So tonight we're going to hopefully give you work that you can be doing.
Right.
What you need to be doing.
Yep, exactly, and that's exactly why we wanted you all here. And then something else that you've probably already read on the Facebook, but I want to encourage you all. Maybe look into a project management system. There's a lot of free ones out there. I personally recommend Freed-Camp, F-R-E-E-D Camp, and or Trello, and that'll basically allow you to work and network with your team, whether locally or remotely. It'll allow you to basically just track your progress as you go along. You can assign tasks to different team members. You can see what your various milestones are. So definitely take a look at those. I use a version of that every single day. That's how we actually, we do a lot of work with graphic designers that actually aren't on Tennessee Tech property, and then we do other stuff with people that actually do work for Tennessee Tech. So we've got all these different people that are coming together and working for us. We've got, at any point in time, we've got anywhere from 10 to 30 people working on a project. So it really helps us in our daily workflow to be able to assign tasks and assign milestones, and basically figure out at any point in time we can know where we're at, what we're deficient on, what we're doing good on, and what needs to be done. So highly encourage you all to do that. So again, don't forget over the Christmas break or over the holiday break that you really want to be working on your project, because when you all get back, you'll get back January 20th, the end of January. You're going to have like a week or two in January, March, and then a little bit of March, and then we're basically into preliminaries and the competition at that point. So it's going to go fast. April 9th will be here before we know it. So you just want to make sure that that you don't forget to work on those things. Yeah.
Yes, working on it over the break. Are we going to have grants available?
Yeah. So do you want to address that?
Yes. I don't have any money. We're gonna have. So I'm gonna. Yes.
Well, I have money.
Yeah. So here's what we're gonna do. We have grants. We're calling them prototype grants.
Right.
So they're available to anybody, but they are for the purpose of creating I will use a couple words, a prototype, or a word we're going to use, which is MVP, minimum viable product. Okay. Minimum viable product would be is a prototype. Another word for a prototype. Okay. There are going to be those things. It's going to be managed through the iMake leadership.
Right.
And so through Michael's team.
Yep.
And so let's just release that. Let's release an announcement maybe by the end of finals week.
Yep.
And how soon are we going to try to get money out to them?
We have.
Here's how it goes. Actually, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
To make this simple, here's how it'll work. You will you'll have to submit. You're going to see this paperwork by the end of next week. It's going to ask you to submit probably a form that's probably about 3 pages, maybe 2 to 3 pages. You're going to have a short description of what you plan to do, what you need, and a budget specifically stating what you need. Okay. Probably a good 1-page description and a budget is probably fine. So I'd say anywhere from 1 to 3 pages, no more than that. You will then, once you're approved, you will then go out and purchase those things that you need and keep your receipts. You will then bring the receipts to either, depending, it'll be maybe managed in the College of Engineering. If it is, it'll be one of the accounting people there, or maybe wherever. We'll probably manage it to there. You'll bring the receipts. We'll give a couple dates where you can bring the receipt and you get reimbursed based on the receipt. We'll probably do it at a date like of January 15th and February 15th and March 15th type time.
Yeah. So
do you think, so if you get the thing out next week, how soon can you start making approvals?
I can as soon as as soon as the holidays are over with. I think that's reasonable.
So as soon as
We'll go ahead and get the information out like that.
So you'll have to make a deadline.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll make a deadline on that. But basically, as soon as I can get the articulation from what we did in previous years from you, I'll make
that's
a
right. You're right on me.
Yeah, and I'll put it out there.
So if somebody, so let me ask you this. So if they purchase something, okay. So let's say the proposals are due January 20th, and then you're going to approve January 27th, and so they get the word back on the 27th, and they can start buying. Let's say, for example, though, you're doing some work over the break and he made some purchases that are in the proposal. So he has the receipts. He made the purchases, say, January 2nd. He proposed those. It got approved. Can he take receipts that are prior to that time if it was proposed and approved? My vote would be yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
As long as they're valid.
I would agree. I mean, it really what it comes down to is
you're just running the risk. You may or may not get it. So
I've got the money for it. What we need to do,
well, you don't know for sure that you're going to be approved.
Right, exactly, and that's the reason. The reason we don't know that is that has to come from the accountants, because there's different policies and stuff like that.
I think that's probably, I can't guarantee it, but I think that's probably reasonable. So if you're starting to do some prototyping, because we're trying to push you to get going, if you do prototyping over the break, you can submit that as part of your thing and bring it in. We cannot guarantee that it'll happen, but right now I'd say it's 60% to 70% likely it'll happen. But when you make that expense, to me it'd be expensive. Well, I'm going to do it either way. If I can get reimbursed, great. And if not, that's how
out of my wheelhouse. Now we can also say that you do have the ability to make some different things in the maker space, and that is very, very, very cheap. It's like 5 cents a gram. if you're going to print out like a 3D printed thing. So
Are we
I mean, that's,
charging for that now?
You know, and probably not. I mean, it's like if we
Yeah.
even
So at some point
charge
you may
for that.
start being charged, but at the
Yeah.
moment it's free.
Yeah,
But,
so
yeah.
if you're going to 3D print something, go ahead and use that. And you don't even have to worry about a
About
thing.
how much grant money is possible to obtain?
Up to $250.
$250.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let's see.
yeah.
Will that cover like, because I think some of us are gonna have like apps and stuff to go along with it. Will that
Anything that
cover-
you purchase.
Right.
Okay, so-
Yeah, this is, look
It's
at
not
this
going
as
to cover,
supplies.
you can't buy somebody's time.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't
It won't
buy
be
an app
food, it won't be
developer
time.
company.
It could, I
nothing like
suppose,
that.
be travel. That's a
Yeah.
little trickier. It'd be better.
Yeah.
It could be travel, but most likely things that you purchase.
It'd be
Yes.
like, I'm talking
Yeah.
like Google Dev Developers Console, to create an app yourself.
Gotcha.
It's
Isn't
like
that- is that-
I don't think that's
is that not
unreasonable.
free?
I mean, if that's something that you can get with a receipt,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
$250.
But I mean, it's
I
just
think that's
supplies.
fine.
But what Steve's going to do, we did this last year. He's going to provide me with what we did last year. We'll take a look at that. We'll get that out by next week, and I'll create a web form where you can basically create your proposal, and
Okay.
you know, so
Well,
we'll do it.
Good. I say in the interest of time, let's get started on this
Yeah,
because we got an
absolutely.
activity that we're going to do.
Mhm.
I want. I don't know if we have some paper, some big pieces of paper.
I can get
some
paper.
board that you can-
Do we want a whiteboard? Do we want paper? What are we looking
I
for?
want people to break up into groups of about two at each table.
Okay.
So it'd be nice if they could have a sheet, some larger sheet that
Okay.
they could work on each
Sure,
table.
I can do that. Maybe some markers and things.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, I didn't even give an introduction. If you don't know him, this is Dr. Stephen Canfield, mechanical engineer.
Yes.
Mad scientist, genius, all of those things. So
Mad.
I'll
Mad,
get some
definitely
paper.
mad.
Is there any, before we get started, are there any final questions for me for operational stuff? Good. All right. Thank you all very much. Now I'll go get some paper.
Okay, good to see everyone. I'm going to get started because you've got lots of good things to do, and I'm just between you and doing those good things. I'm here with Jeff Brown, who's the director of the Biz Foundry. That's one of the Launch Tennessee sites in the state. He's going to be here. He's really the guy that knows all this stuff and will go on forever. I'll get going very quickly. He'd take forever. I'm going to go quickly. At the end, he'll probably want to go back and revisit some of that. Our plan is to go through and talk a little bit about some of the language that we use. And the languages, Mike, are you a company? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you a startup? What are you? Do you need a business license today? Those kind of questions. I want to answer a little bit of language. Then we're going to go into this tool that we call the Business Model Canvas. Okay, the Business Model Canvas is your precursor to a business model, or a business plan, if you will, I should say. And then at the end of that time, we're going to have an activity where we're going to do a little practice. We want to look at that. I'm also going to tell you some of the steps that you should do leading off from here. The plan, as I'm looking at the time, says 6:20. We agreed that we would go no longer than 6:40 minutes. I'm hoping for about 30. So when Jeff gets here, we'll all agree that we stop listening and we go to the thing at 7 regardless. Do you agree with that, Corey? So you're going to be the heavy? You're going to start seriously throwing so you can see the thing there. Okay. Okay. Business models and customer development. We're pulling these slides from the Lean Launchpad program developed out of Stanford and Berkeley, and there's a bunch of people that did that. We took their slides and put our name on it. Okay, so here that is idea to business. That's all. That's what EagleWorks is about. That's the exciting stuff that we're about. So the question is, what does it? And see, Jeff knows all this stuff, so we'll see how it goes along. What does it take to go for idea from a business? Well, it takes a couple things, and I guess we're going to see them. Let me click forward so I can see what they are here. I don't want to go too far because it'll, I knew that. Okay. So what does it take to go from idea from a business? So we're saying a couple things. A business model plus customer development, hypothesis testing on the business model, and get out of the building. These are sort of the big ideas that's coming out of this Lean Launchpad. You know, everyone is saying business plan. Notice business plan doesn't necessarily show up here yet. You know, also as an engineering, as a technical person, it doesn't say, you know, product development initially. The whole concept here is we think about as engineers. I'm an engineer, so I'm going to think about that. I think about developing a product, and that's all that matters to having a successful business. If I make the perfect widget, I've got the perfect business. Frankly, I think the numbers show that probably 60 to 70% of your business is the customer, understanding the customer, and probably 30 to 40% of that is the product. If you're talking to an engineer, they'd say it's the other way. It's 70-30. You know, if you're talking to a business person, they'd probably tell you it's, you know, the opposite. But at least we could agree that you want to look at these things equal-sided. So this is going to emphasize of course, there's all the technical things and all the details that you have to worry about, but this is going to emphasize this other side. We're going to use this word called hypothesis as if it's scientific. It's not, but we all know what that means being at Tennessee Tech. And then we're going to use this word get out of the building, which emphasizes, once again, if you think you can win if you can win EagleWorks by just sitting with your teammate in your lab pounding out the hours, it's probably not going to work. So you got to get out of the building. Okay, so here, let's start about what's a company, because I brought that up. What are we? So we're thinking we're a company. So what is a company? Well, a company is, I guess this is the definition of a business organization which sells a product or service in exchange for revenue and profit. So the question is, you say, oh, am I a company? Am I a small company? Well, are you selling a product? Do you have trucks? Do you have a website where you take orders and those types of things? I think for the practical purpose, none of us are a company. Are we buying ads in the newspaper? And probably none of us are a company. Even if we have a little product that we've sold 2 or 3 of, we're probably not necessarily a company. That's actually a good thing. That means you don't need a business license through the county. There's a bunch of stuff you don't need because we're not a company. You could probably sell a couple things to your mom or your uncle and still not call yourself a company. You don't have to collect taxes. Okay, we're not a company yet. So the question is, well, what are we? And I'm going to get that in a moment. How are companies organized? They're organized around, that says business model, really a business plan. So here's the thing, and Mike knows this, but we keep saying a business plan. A business plan tells your company how it's going to operate. We just got done saying we're not a company, right? So it says, in January we're going to order $10,000 of product. In February we're going to buy these systems. In March we're going to do this and this. In April we're going to get this income, right? That's a business plan. That tells you how you operate. And all businesses have one, whether they write it down or not. We're not really a company yet, so we are going to create this other thing, this thing that's going to guide what will be our operating procedure where we're going. Does that kind of make sense? So that's what's difficult. You say, well, I need this business plan, but what is this business plan? Well, we're sort of using it 2 ways. If you have an ongoing business, the business plan is, it tells your company how you're going to run. That's your plan. And you probably update it every year or so, depending on the company. We are looking at something else. We want this thing, and that's why we're going to use the word model. We want this thing that kind of describes what the business might look like once it gets going. Feel free to jump in at any time. What's a business model? Describes all the parts of the company necessary to make money. We just talked about that. All right, now, what about my technology? Okay, I guess I've already said that. It's one of the many critical pieces to build a company. It's part of the value proposition. We're going to see what value proposition is again. What I'm doing is I'm saying again, being at a technical institute, I tend to think that the technology is 90% of the problem and everything else is 10% of the problem. I think it's important to understand that there's so much to the company that your technology is only one part of the problem, however you want to break it down. But I would say 50% of your total effort, probably at max. Here's a statement people like to say: customers don't care about your technology, right? Frankly, they don't care about your technology. What do they care about? They have things they care about. We'll call those things problems, okay? They have pains. And that's really what they care about. You have pains, and they have pains. They might be nice, but they don't care about your pains. They care about their pains, and that's what you're doing. And so you're trying to solve a problem for them. That's when they care. They care if you can solve a problem for them. So, that's just a core. Does that core idea make sense? So let's relate it to EagleWorks, okay? If I were a judge, I'm not a judge, but if I were a judge and somebody got up there and they have 7 minutes and they talk 6 minutes about, I've got this thing, look, it's got a microcontroller, it's got, batteries, it's got electronics, it's got moving parts, it's got this, here's how it works, let me show you, here's a diagram of how all the parts go together. If I spend 6 minutes out of 7 telling about my technology, do you think I'm going to, based on what I just told you, do you think I'm going to rise to the top of EagleWorks? No, I've got to keep my technology, honestly, at about half of this thing. In a way, if you could say, hey, I found this problem, and I think I have a solution. Let me show you how the problem and the solution come together. That's the idea. All right. So, what's a startup? That's what we are. I don't have a good slide here, so I'm going to have to paint it in words. You are a startup. Micah, you're a startup. I don't know all your names. I should know, because you competed last year.
That's Deanna.
Yeah, I knew that. I was testing Deanna. Okay, so Deanna, you're a startup. Okay, and you had a product last year. and maybe you're going forward. Maybe that thing is now selling and you've got trucks with your logo on the side. But otherwise, you're a startup. You all are a startup here, okay? The good news, again, there's no business plan. You don't need to file taxes. You don't need anything to be a startup. You can just say, hey, I'm a startup. That's all it is. Here, we've got this definition. A startup is a temporary organization, but it's not legal. So I don't even like the word organization. It's nothing recognized by the IRS or anyone. It's just you. It's you and a few other people that are out to, you're doing a search for a repeatable or scalable business model, okay? You're out on a search. I have a slide, I need to find it, I don't have it here, but it's a slide of like explorers in a ship heading off, or in a spaceship heading off to a new planet or a new land. That's what a startup is. You have the idea, you think, hey, I think if I sail west, I'll get to the East Indies. You have got this idea, this hypothesis, right? You're in a ship, you're going out, you're exploring, you're getting out of your building, and you're going to find information. As you get information, you're going to update your way of thinking, okay? Christopher Columbus, I don't think, ever realized that he didn't hit the Indies. Is that true? I think he died thinking he got to the Indies, which is kind of odd. But anyhow.
Factoid, we actually knew that the Earth was round since the ancient Greeks.
Yeah, a lot of ancient Greeks pretty much assumed that it was, I knew that, yeah. But, so don't be like Christopher Columbus here on that part. You will be able to like him heading out in the search, but as soon as you get new information, incorporate it and change what you're doing, okay? Don't say, I know I'm right. I know the customer's all wrong, okay? If you're willing to change continuously, you have a better chance of doing this. Okay, so we're all startups, and I think that's a good way to think about yourself. And you can be a startup as long as you want. When you're ready to become a business, you can transition from being a startup to being a business, but you can go a long way as a startup. Okay, so how to build a startup. So, the idea is you've got an idea. Probably, if you're a technical person, most people, it seems like they always say, I had this problem and then I came up with a solution. I don't know, I find most technical people, or most of us, tend to say, I got this great idea, and you're out kind of looking for the problem that would solve. That's the angle that I'm going to take on it here, okay? You need to develop around this idea a model. There's some things that you want to do. You want to kind of understand the size of this opportunity. You want to be able to describe that. And then do this thing we call customer development. This is the idea of developing your understanding of the customer at the same time that you develop your technology. And no surprise, but understanding the customer informs your technology. Mike?
Yeah.
We're going to give you these slides. Is there a place that you can kind of put these?
Yes, there is. I was going to ask if you would email that to me when we're done.
Okay. Here's a, let me see. See, I'm not prepared as well as I should be. Here's sort of an idea. So we're here, we're moving our way along, and you're going to do these things. You've got your idea. That's kind of where we are. We're at the very beginning. We're a startup. You've got your team. You've got your idea, and you're going to move through. We're going to talk about starting to generate a model, this business model, this way of describing how we think the world works according to our project. We're going to measure that. We're going to test that. We're going to test the size. We're going to test a number of things. I got a later thing. We're going to do this thing called customer discovery. So honestly, I think this should be changed. I think this size and customer discovery should be pulled together, and they're going to influence our business model. And there's going to be a circle. We're just going to continuously update that. There's these guys that developed this break this into two parts: discovery and validation. Frankly, the discovery side is where we'll be for this full time, for the most part, if you use their language. The validation is when you really start, you get your business license, you start shipping these things, and you start validating that. That's sort of the early business stage. So I think for the most part, honestly though, if you want to start saying, hey, I've done some discovery and I'm doing some basic validation, that's fine too. You can use this language in whatever way is usable. One thing that's great about this entrepreneurial startup mindset is that all the things go out the door. If it's not working for you, do something else, and that's as good as anything. I kind of love that, don't you? Have you noticed that? And there's no doctors in the entrepreneurial startup. Have you noticed that? Only in academics. Okay. So if you saw Bill Gates, you call him Bill. In other words, right? Or anyone else. Okay. So, here we got this idea of theory and practice. So, once again, this business model is really just theory. Once you start doing discovery and validating, that's when it becomes practice. Okay, I'm going to jump through some of these. How to build the startup, if you want a reference, there's sort of these two books, and this is actually a little bit old. There's a book on these business models here, and this is by this guy named Osterwald. And frankly, I've got 3 of these on my bookshelf, so if anyone wants to flip through them, please come by and grab it and look at it. I personally wouldn't buy it. There's so much information online about this. And then there's this book by Steve Blank. He's the one that really got all this going, or has popularized this particular language. And this is actually a good book, and I've got a couple of these on my bookshelf. This is actually a pretty good book. If you said I want to commit to a book, I think you bought that book, Corey, right? If I want to commit to a book, this one's pretty good. It's pretty deep, but that's a good book, okay? And then the business model is going to come from there, and our stuff from the customer discovery validation comes from here. Okay, so now let's talk about the business model. It describes all the parts of the company necessary to make the money, okay? So again, I said that it's a little confusing how we're using the words business plan, business model. We are a startup. A business plan tells the business how to run. We're going to use probably the word model. So we want this thing that's going to eventually become a plan once we're ready to start executing. The plan is what you execute. The model is how you think it should be. At some point you commit and say, it's now a plan. We're going to spend the money that we said we were going to spend in January. We're going to spend that $10,000 in January. But until that time, we'll use the language model. Does that sound reasonable, Mike?
Yep.
Okay. What are those parts? What are they composed of? Okay. So the tool that, I don't know, is kind of popular is the business model canvas. The idea of a canvas is it's a 1-page, a big canvas, I guess, like you do a drawing on, right? You don't have to flip through. It's not 50 pages. You can see the whole thing in front of you at one time. That's sort of the idea. You can use whatever form, but it seems like the business model canvas is the popular thing now. If you go take a look at it, you'll see this. Jeff's going to be so upset. He's going to, that we're getting through this. So we'll be polite and let him have time up until 7 when he gets here, Corey, okay? So as soon as he comes in, he'll take over. Okay, so the canvas is going to describe the challenge, the design, the business, everything around it systematically. Well, what does this canvas look like? Let's jump. It's got 9 building blocks, and rats. Wouldn't it be nice to see the whole thing? Okay, we're going to have to go through step by step. Sorry. It'd be nice to see the whole thing. It's a canvas. It's about however big you want to blow it up, and it's got 9 parts. Let's start talking about these parts. The very first part, which is the heart of it, is your technology. No, it's the customer, because they're the ones that ultimately foot the bill. The success is measured by people buying your product. People, I don't want to say buying. I don't know how they're going to get it. They don't necessarily have to buy it. People using your product. So the first part is the customer segment. This is weird. The customer segment, actually, you're going to see is going to show up on the left-hand side. I think this whole thing is inverted. So there's a person there. Who's the customer? Who would be the customer? Do you have, when I say customer, does that make sense? Let me call, I don't know, everyone, somebody in the back, tell me what a customer is. Can anyone tell me what a customer is?
I mean, it's just anyone who like buys or like uses your product.
Okay, so
Or
name one.
say benefits. Then?
Yeah, no, I love that. I've got a point that I'm going after. Name one. You've got an idea of your product. What would be your customer? Tell me.
Well, our idea would probably be like Tennessee Tech students or anyone of any large organization like airports or.
Okay, so like you might say, okay, so I love that. So who would be an airport? Airport, go on with the airport.
So like anyone flying or ours is kind of like a parking thing. So.
Yeah, okay. So you just said a Tennessee Tech student or an airline passenger.
Right.
Okay. So does a student, well, and that's actually good. I was hoping maybe you'd say like the vice president of student affairs at, maybe it would be right. You might say the vice president of student affairs at a medium-sized university. Does the title vice president, does the title student ever buy anything? Or does the title vice president of such and such ever buy anything?
No.
Not at all. Who buys?
The individual.
Yes, you've been through this. Mark, okay, because we're an entrepreneur. Mark is going to commit, right? Mr. Burnett is going to commit to buying something. Vice presidents never buy anything. It's going to be Steve Canfield that's late to the airport, and I'm looking for any option I can to park my car and get on the plane. So when you think about your customer is not a title. Student is a title. Your customer is Deanna. It's a person that has a pain and they are willing to exchange cash or something else. They want to use your product. Does that make sense? So the customer segment is very much a person. In your business plan, customer segment are masses. In the business model canvas is a person that you should probably meet a bunch of them. You should know what they look like. Take their picture. I tell you what, EagleWorks winners, I would say would have a picture and say, hey, here's Here's Mark. We talked to Mark. Look at the pain in his face. You know, when he walked in his office, look at his pain. We told him about our idea. Look how happy he is. I mean, can you imagine something like this? We got the customer face to face. All right, customer segment. Does that make sense? And that's where it all starts. Okay, what's the second part? The second part's pretty much everything you buy probably falls into one of those two things if you really think about it, right? Do you agree with that, Deanna? I'll use me. Okay, I'm a customer. Steve, I'm using a customer. Maybe I'm buying Christmas presents, not really. My wife does that. But if I bought a Christmas present, what's that about? Mostly in my case, it's a pain. Right? I got to buy a present for this person, right? So I'm alleviating, I need a present. Where's the present? Have you ever been in that? I need a present. I find a present. There it is. It's only $20. Here you go. I've just alleviated a pain, right? I hate to think of presents that way. You know, but I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I need food, right? Here's a place I can buy food. I've alleviated pain. The other possibility is I'm going to buy this thing because I really think it's going to help me what I'm doing. You know, I've got this thing. I think I can be better at it, so I'm willing to invest in this thing. Probably you can lump everything into alleviating pains. Value could be alleviating pains or giving some gain. And frankly, most things tend to fall into, most people get rid of their pains before they even get to thinking about gains. Does that kind of make sense? You mentioned parking. Parking would probably fall on the pain side, I'm thinking. Okay. So you got your value proposition right in the middle. Does that make sense? And what am I doing showing all this stuff? Well, you got a list. You know, you're going to have Mark here. And so now Mark now represents vice presidents of universities. Deanna represents students, okay? But you're going to have a little picture of Deanna here. You're going to, hey, we found our customer. Here's an archetype. Here's what our customer looks like. Here's what they'd be. What's the value proposition? Here's the value that they're really looking for, okay? And then the next one is channels. Channels are how you get your value to the customer. So that's a fancy name. How do I get my value to the customer? Does that make sense? And there's all kinds of ways you can do it. Do you want me to expand on that more? I mean, I guess you could be at Walmart, and so the channel is they go to a big box store, they pick it off the shelf, they buy it. It could be something they download. There's, I guess, a bazillion ways they could get it now. Back to this pain and gain. This is really so core to the problem. I have a slide at the end how I think you can win EagleWorks, and in my mind, you can win EagleWorks if you really sell this part. That I've got customers, and they've got needs, and I can satisfy it. Frankly, if you think I don't want to put too much words in Deanna's mouth, but I'm guessing, Deanna, if you start listing your pains, it'd probably be 5 sheets, right? You've got lots of pains, probably. I know I do, okay? And the pains that you can convince me to shell out cash or to act on are probably in the first 3. I could probably list 100. And the pains I'm going to act on, at least today or in the next week or whatever, are probably in that first subset. Do you agree? So if somebody comes to me and say, hey, I got this thing, isn't that a pain, when you sit down and the chair's never adjusted just right? Yeah, it's kind of a pain, I've noticed that. I got this thing that solve that. That's so far down the list, it just doesn't matter. So you need the customers and you need the pain that's pretty high on the list.
Oh, I was just you kind of just hit it just then, but so basically what you're saying is, in your opinion, the big thing to really expand upon and hit hard is that trifecta, not just an individual one. It's that you have customers that have problems, you have value that can solve that, and you have a way to get it to them.
Well, the channel is the way to get to them. So I don't want to say there's a trifecta because there's more than just this. Right. But yeah, I was getting at that. Yeah, you've got to pull this together. Really, I think this side of the canvas, and again, it's going to be flipped on the ones you usually see, but this side of the canvas, pulling this together is probably the main thing that you want to sell.
Because if you're an investor, you want to see that you can make money out of it, and that's our textbook of how you make money.
Yeah. So part of it is, what wins or what gets an investor or what wins or EagleWorks or the like? Well, I think that you've got to clearly understand the customer, and you've got to have a value proposition. And now we've said that value proposition has to rise up to I'm going to do something about it. There's a slide. I was an instructor for this, and the slide we used partway through was the hair on fire. So we had a picture of a person running around with hair on fire. In a way, if you can find that hair on fire pain, that makes sense. That hair on fire need, you're really onto something. Because people are bombarded with stuff. So you get that hair on fire need, then you really have something. And then I mentioned market opportunity. So if you've got one person in the whole world that I've got a customer, and they look good on my picture, and I've got a value, and it's a hair on fire thing, but there's only one, and it's not reproducible. That's the market size. It doesn't quite show up here, but you can imagine at some point you're going to have to say this is a market size thing. And you kind of decide on that. I think winning EagleWorks, that I don't know that you necessarily, that doesn't have to, well, we'll see. I suppose all the things being equal, the bigger market would win. But I don't know that we're getting to that threshold. Last year I saw an app that won. There was an app for people making music. And that's probably down in the order of 10 to 20% of a target group. So it doesn't have to be everyone necessarily. Okay. Corey's watching my time here. What do I have next? Okay.
You know, it's an hour ahead, right?
Oh, that's helpful. But we're still stopping at 7 on that time, which is 6 our time. I'm glad you said that.
Okay.
I'm glad you said that, Deanna. Okay, customer relationships. There's another thing. You would think that there'd be, well, there's not anything going from the customer to the value. We haven't talked about how you extract the money yet, okay? This is just how they get the product. None of this is about you, Corey. It's not about you here. Have you noticed? Okay, it's all about the customer, the value, how they get the product, whatever this value is. And I tend to think it's a thing they're going to hold in the hand. Not at all. It could be an app. It could be anything. It could be good feelings. I don't know what it is. Then there's some way that you're going to have to communicate with that customer, though. How do they know what's going on? Okay, that's customer relationships. You've got to create this relationship in some way with a customer. And as you do that, you become successful, because once people see your idea, they're going to say, oh, parking, that was a great idea. I should have thought of that. Well, we'll just do it. So if you're the one, you've got the early customers, you've got this relationship, they want to come to you. All right. Okay, moving on. You get that idea. So that's one quadrant. That's 4 out of the 9. What's next? Cha-ching, the money, okay? So revenue streams. This is where you get the money. It's funny how it fits in. The revenue streams and then where you're going to spend your money are going to show up down here at the bottom, okay? Revenue stream, I guess it sort of connects so you can kind of see it flowing. Here's the customer, here's the value going to the customer, or the product or the thing going to the customer. In a way you can think of this revenue stream as kind of coming back to you in a way, but you see that idea there, okay? You can get, hey Jeff, okay, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm sorry I got started here. And I told him that you...
I'm I-40 for an hour.
Okay. Oh, excellent, you brought the BusinessModelCanvas, okay. So Jeff, I'll tell you what, let me finish revenue streams. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, revenue streams is how your company gets the money. I think, again, we're going to say at the end, we got our slide at the end that tells you how to win. I honestly think you're going to win by really selling this part, okay, and getting some size. Nuances of the revenue stream are probably not needed, but if you want to add some of that, particularly if you're a business person, Deanna, start looking at some of the nuances of that might be good. So do the customers pay me directly? Do they pay a third party? Do I provide my product? Do I provide my product directly to my customer pays me, or so you can think there's a lot of detail that can go into that. Again, for EagleWorks, not necessary. To get money from some investor, some significant money from an investor, you probably really have to thinking about that. Okay.
Well, if you don't know how you get money from somebody's checking account into yours, that's what we're looking for. It's a subscription model, it's a one-time sale, whatever, but somehow that you get money from them to you. That's what we want you to think of for your revenue models. How do you get money for this? So.
And then, quick, Jeff, could you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm sorry I'm late. Like I said, we've been behind a wreck on the other side of Alexandria for an hour. So I had meetings in Nashville all afternoon. So I ran up the stairs too. Gotta get in shape. So I'm Jeff Brown. Some of you know me. I'm the president of the Biz Foundry, and so we're here to do entrepreneurship in the 14 counties around us. And so we're kind of the Shark Tank guys. How do we get you from idea to funding to whatever it takes to get you there? So I teach this on a daily basis in about 6 different forms, and Steve and I have become because Mutt and Jeff's probably not right. Yeah, that would make you Mutt, right? I'm probably more of the Mutt. So. But anyway, so we've done this for a long time, so we're getting to where we can kind of complete each other's sentences at this point. But what it is, it's just a model that we know entrepreneurs use. And it's not complicated, even though it seems that way to start with. So once you've been exposed to it, don't have any of the KPU guys here, do we? Yeah. So the people who have been through it, it's actually easier to understand, don't panic. But what it is a nice, 9 shapes of how 9 sections of how you really do this. And so you don't overthink and overwork the parts. Because you guys don't have enough time.
And it's on one page.
It's one page. It should change every 5 minutes.
Exactly.
If you're doing
the
it
other
right.
concept is it's going to be changing as you're out, you talk to a new customer and you say, oh, I didn't ever think about that, and you quickly go to your work.
I'll pick on Jackie. So even in her project, they've already made changes already, and they haven't even done this yet. So.
And Jeff, I got to tell you this, Corey is going to shut us off at 7 according to that clock sharp.
All right.
Okay.
All right, Corey. You're still in charge of time.
Let me do that all advance for you.
So again, he just told you, for EagleWorks purposes, Steve and I, in our infinite wisdom, have kind of decided what you need to worry about is really the right side of the business model canvas. Don't get too much into the left side, okay? So key resources, what are we talking about here? What do I need to get started? Startup capital, people, what are resources? It's not just money. I need human capital. I'm an engineer, I need a programmer. Or we're engineers and we need a business person. What other resources do we need? Money. Mentors, people that can help us figure out how to do this. Okay? All those kind of things. So that's what we want to know in the business model canvas, and not detailed. Okay? Short answers. The whole lean method is based on don't do anything more than you have to prove or disprove your hypothesis. Period. You're not ready to do a 50-page business plan yet. That's what this is all about, is how do we figure that out. So those resources can be a lot of different things, okay? Could be education, could be, somebody needs to learn how to write code. Could be lots of things, but what do we got to do this? From a money perspective, buildings, manufacturing, whatever it takes. What resources do we need? That one's pretty simple. Key activities. This one's even more simple in a real world, but this is really hard to do. What key things do we need to focus to build our business quickly? So you don't get distracted on these millions of things you think needs to be done. You need to get up every day and think about what are the key activities we need to do today or tomorrow. Because really in the startup phase, if you're looking more than a couple weeks out, you're probably guessing way too much. So what's our very next thing we need to do to move us further? So those key activities could be a lot of things. It could be finishing our product. It could be finishing our website. It could be lots of things, but what things do we really need to worry about? And we normally say, if you've got more than 3 or 4 things under key activities, you're probably overthinking this.
And probably if they're all about your technical product, you're probably looking.
You're probably thinking about the wrong thing, because we're engineers, right? We want to build things, so we tend to get too wrapped up in our product. What other things do we need to be doing? Our website. How are we going to sell this thing? Do we need to be working with a manufacturing partner? All those kind of things that are activities that we need to get us the very next step. Okay? Don't be working on activities that are a year from now. Work on what you need to do right now to take another step. That's it. It's really that simple. And we tend to overthink that a lot. Partners. So again, when you look at partners, nobody ever does this alone. So pick on Jackie again. I've already told her she needs to talk to Dr. Stretz, someone who can help her as a mentor. And then there's also the business partners, our suppliers, our bankers, all those kind of people who are going to be our key partners, because you're not going to do this yourself. Somebody throw one of your ideas at me.
Parking in the back.
Oh, yeah. We're doing kind of like a know what parking is available at all times kind of thing.
In a whole city,
Shooting for like college campus first, and then
okay.
expansion, yeah.
So who would your partners need to be?
And probably whoever the company is, or whoever like college campus is, whether it be.
So you're going to need to partner with the school probably,
Yeah.
because you're going to need them to help promote. They've got to partner with you to promote the app, right?
Right.
So you've also got some other strategic partners. Google, you may need Google Maps. You may need those things. So all these different partners you may need to put all this together in a working model. And so a lot of times we don't think about that. We really don't. And so those are the kind of things we're trying to tell you need to think about, because those partners can be one of the biggest parts of your success, to be real honest with you. Do you need a marketing partner? Hey, you get whatever, huge website to recommend your service. That's a marketing partner. It also can be a channel. So some of these things can fall in more than one place. But what partners does it take to get us moving? All right? Cost structure. Believe it or not, this is the easiest part of the whole thing, is figuring out your cost structure. Now, On your technical product, that may not be the easiest thing, okay? According to figure out what can we sell this thing once we manufacture more than one at a time, those kind of things. But all those other things are pretty easy, actually. I mean, you know, we know it costs this to rent a building. We know our employees will cost us this. So don't overthink cost. This is all about getting something together so I'm somewhere in reality at this point. You know, you can't say our costs are going to be $1,000 a month and a couple of us look at it and go, man, your costs are going to be $50,000 a month. Don't be that far off. But we don't need you to have it down to, you know, it's $3,442.97 because that's just crazy. You don't know that yet. But if you can get it within 10%, you're doing really well at this point.
You know, and this just makes me think of something here. So this is the model for the plan that you're eventually going to execute.
Right.
So I guess in this case, I mean, this is also speculation, right? Your costs are probably associated with, you know, how much product you produce. I do suspect, though, that that this is one part for EagleWorks, although it's a little bit fictitious because you're a startup, you don't have those costs.
That's
I do think that it's worthwhile to at least make a reasonable conjecture of what
that is correct.
You need to be realistic about what your cost would be.
Right.
We don't care about how exact it are, but we want to know that you've considered insurance and all those things people don't talk
That
about.
you have made a good faith effort to
That's right.
quantify that number.
And to some
That's
degree,
feasibility.
you know, and to some degree, let me jump in here on EagleWorks stuff. So last year I saw a team that showed up and they had a really nice business plan. It was good, but it was like many pages, and about 30 pages back they started adding their tables, you know, this is our by-month expenses. And then they had, you know, and so to balance it out, they had, I mean, their expenses were probably about 30 grand, 40 grand a month. I think they were trying to pay 4 of them plus product. And so they had about 40 grand a month. So, you know, over the year they were spending about $500,000. Is that right? Yeah, $500,000 a year. And so they had like sales, so like $100,000 sales in March and $100,000 sales in July, and then like a 200. And so I said, well, this is awesome. What's the customer's name? I mean, who's buying this first sale? I said, oh, it'll be, we hope a museum or maybe a university, you know. That just doesn't fly. So here's what I'm getting toward. That key activity, you know, at this point, to make those line up, the key activity ought to be, I think that's where you're going to put it. You know, our first customer, our first sale, we're, you know, a key activity is prepping this first sale.
Or a key activity could be a partnership with the schools that can show I can even get this thing into the market.
I mean, of course it's not perfect,
No.
but to some degree that just seemed like a hole to me to have these costs that represented something and nowhere on the rest of the canvas, or they didn't have a canvas, but nowhere else are you representing that I thought about who that first sale is and who that second sale is. I can almost better buy in year 3 that we're going to start making money, but that first and second and third sale were the ones I was really curious about.
Well, and so if you come to us, this is not really EagleWorks, but you come to us for the next step of how do we really stand this company up, get going, get funding. So, and we get people, bring this, I'm going to sell $100,000 a month. Really, tell us how.
Yeah, who?
You can't just pick a number. How are you going to sell $100,000? You know, we get that blind, dumb look. They just picked a number out of the air. No, we want to know how do you get, we're not saying you can't, but if you don't have a plan to do that. So that's what we're saying is don't make numbers. We'd rather see low numbers that actually have some thought into it than that we get the ones all the time. I'm going to do $1 million my first year, and 2.5 the second year, and 5 the third year. Really, how? What's your marketing plan? Can you ship that much? You know, all that kind of stuff. And that's when we get the duh.
Something that's happened to my slides here.
They're just tired.
Uh-oh. I think I've lost the whole thing.
If someone has a tech Wi-Fi thing that they're sold, they win. Yeah.
I'm up for that. I think I will invest in that idea.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what the Biz Foundry may or may not do to help EagleWorks teams out?
So what we're thinking is, number one, you can always fire us an email if you want us to, you know, get a mentor or meet with you for a few minutes just to help you work with the thing. Michael and I have started talking about maybe sometime when the semester starts back up, we might do a Saturday kind of EagleWorks day, and everybody can just come and we'll have mentors there and kind of rotate through. And then one of the big things we helped with last year is helping with your presentation. because you're just not used to doing public presentations. That's not right, wrong, or indifferent, but an academic presentation and a pitch are two completely different animals.
And you got 7 minutes to do it.
And you got 7 minutes. So it's easy to do a 20-minute presentation. Take that and get it down to 7 to 10 minutes is really hard. And the reason we want you to do that is because we know you know your stuff when you can do that, all right? It's hard not to talk too much and talk about pot kettle here. I can talk for days on all of this, but it's really hard to get a good pitch down into 7 or 8 minutes and don't read them a book, okay?
Well, this is fast forwarding us, but for some reason it's playing. But there's the building blocks. Okay.
So it really is, to use the business model canvas correctly, I don't know how many copies I brought, but I can email Michael one to print some more if we need it. But I should have let Michael know to have sticky notes here. You know, I mean, it really should be that changeable. I mean, don't write anything in ink, okay? Because that's what we want you to do. It's about proving that your ideas exist, you know, and that it has real validity to the real world, not about what's in your head. Because literally, who cares? You know, who's going to buy it, how they're going to use it, when they're going to use it, where they're going to use it, what they're going to pay for it. All those kind of things are what we want you to get out of the business model canvas. And we want you to prove that, okay? We talk about evidence-based entrepreneurship, just like you do evidence-based research. It's the same thing. You can't just say, if I mix these 3 chemicals together, this will happen. You have to experiment and see what really happens, right? And so that's kind of what the whole business model canvas is based on.
All right. Jeff, do you want me to jump in here? This will lead.
Wherever you want me to do.
Well, okay. Well, so you filled out your business model canvas, and they're a guess. There are a bunch of guesses, right?
Yeah,
Filled
you're
out
not
the first time.
Fall in love with the questions, not the answers.
Okay.
Does
So
that make sense?
So they're guesses. So how does this really work? So here I'm going to put in a little plug, and we got all kinds of opportunities. But I'm going to put in another plug. We are, our group here has been tentatively approved to become an I-Course site. We've got this kind of initial lean launch class that's now going to become formalized. We've got an opportunity for you to go through the class. I said 10 weeks. It's actually like a 6-week type thing with a little bit of downtime, and then you come back and present. And cash, notice the $4 sign, so we're talking 4 figures kind of cash money to help your team go forward. This is something that will be launched sometime in the spring. If you go through EagleWorks and you want to do this, this will be a great way to get involved. It'll kind of get on a formal track if you decide to do that. So it's coming in 2016. So that's a little pitch. All right, so Jeff, what I'm going to do is, what are we going to do here? Well, I think we kind of got to the end of this. I was just trying to say a word about this concept of looking at the customer, talking to the customers, and how will that go. I think maybe, do we want to just pick back up on the customer discovery at our next get together?
So
That's
we
what
take
you would
5 minutes and do this so that
Okay,
when
since
we
we've
do
got
the
here.
full one, you'll kind of understand what you're coming for.
Really get them to where they can maybe take some of this back and work over the break.
Okay.
You know,
And I'm going to send you some stuff to post.
Yeah, thank you. We'll
Okay,
certainly
2
post
minutes
that too.
Almost 7.
It is 7,
Yeah,
but
okay.
Deanna just told me it's 2 minutes fast.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 more minutes. So the customer development, we say this customer development process. We said this is important with your thing. So there's these 4 steps when he breaks it down: discovery, validation, you go back. So, and we're really going to focus on discovery. Then when your business, really what they say is when your business is up and running, actually do that. I kind of implied there, but that's sort of early phase business. There's this concept of a minimum viable product. That's the most minimal thing that you can get in your customer's hands to get any type of feedback. And it can be truly minimal to, up to the point where it's a functioning product that you're getting paid for, maybe just with a few bugs. The concept of a pivot, so I said I was going to give you language. Concept of a pivot is when you change one or more of the components on your business model canvas. Jeff's saying sticky notes, and absolutely early on you change that. My experience from what I've seen and going through this just twice that I can document is that early on I'm making lots of changes. Later on it starts to get a little more static, and I'm doing lots of work in my lab and other places, and it gets static. But early on you're making a lot of changes. That's the concept of the pivot. Did you notice we use the word lean in our program, lean launchpad or lean startup? If you're an engineer, you've heard about lean, right? Lean manufacturing is where the idea really came out. And the idea of lean manufacturing is what's the most on earth cheapest way to make this product, and you look at every single cost. Well, now business groups have adopted the concept of lean. What's the cheapest on earth way to get this company up, and the cheapest way is to figure out if an idea is good or bad, not at the end, but at the beginning. So the word of fail fast comes into play. So the sooner that I can find out I've got a bad idea that I'm working on right now and then get to a good product, good idea, the better off you are. Which rips my little heart out, Micah, because I have this great technology and I want to hang on to it as long as possible. It's like you shouldn't talk about boyfriends or girlfriends, should you? Like a girlfriend that you know is going to leave you someday, or a significant other where you just hang on to that, forever, and finally they leave you and stomp on your heart. Well, that's not lean.
That's positive.
That's not lean. Okay. I don't know. That's why they call me Mutt, right? I mean, that's my analogies are bad. All right, so speed. Okay, now, how do we do this speed? Well, obviously the fastest way to do it is get your product perfected, get it on a truck, sell it to a few thousand people, and then wait to see what they post on, Amazon reviews, right? Wrong. You can find out if your product's good or bad, frankly, just by going and talking to someone. And you don't even need the product in your hand. So we have this thing that we call customer interviews, getting out of the building. You can frankly, and this was a shocker to me, building robots. I thought I had to build a robot and give it in someone's hand and then leave them and let them try it. It turns out that I could probably find out at least half of the stuff just by sitting down and talking to someone and talking about what their needs are and finding out, are they really ever going to buy a robot? Or, of course they love robots, right? Everyone loves robots. Or maybe they hate robots. But are they really going to buy a robot? And you can frankly find that out by talking to them and asking the right questions. So that's the customer development process. We are going to get together. We're going to have one. If you're interested, we're going to come. We're going to do little mock interviews. We're going to give you some feedback, help you do that. Cold call a customer. And you're not selling something. That's the beauty. You're not selling anything. You're a student. And you're doing a class project. And so they'll talk to you. But that's the most important thing. This customer discovery process is broken out like this. We got the business model canvas. You slap a hypothesis on it. You go out and test it. So my hypothesis is I think there's people like Deanna out there that might want parking. I'm going to go talk to 10 of them. And students, how hard could that be? I could talk to 50 probably in an hour. I'm going to go talk to some students and find out, hey, where'd you park? How'd it go? Tell me what your problem was. Don't know your name. What's your name?
Wes.
Wes. Okay, so if Wes goes up, hey, Deanna, I got this great idea for parking. Are you interested? And Deanna's like, maybe. And then maybe Deanna is nice. She's kind. And she doesn't want to hurt your feelings. She says, yeah, Wes, that's a nice idea. I think I'd like that. I'd try that. If you develop that, I would buy that, I think. And it's like, I'm out of here, okay? That's no use. What you want to do is say, Deanna, where'd you park? Did it bother you today? What about yesterday? She says, no, it wasn't bad. Wasn't bad yesterday. Hey, you've got some good advice. Deanna, maybe not going to work. You talk to 50 people and you get 49 that didn't have a problem parking on tech campus. You probably need to rethink
You're
your
working
idea.
on it, better identifying the problem you're solving, not necessarily selling them something.
Exactly. And literally, could I do that in 2 hours? Yes. Could I talk to 50 tech students in 2 hours? Yes. I could do that. That's lean. Okay. And then I make the idea. Then, go ahead, Wes.
So when you're doing this kind of like interviewing process, would you recommend doing it like that, where you just like come up to people and you just yourself kind of just ask them like very vague questions like that? Again, you're not really testing your product. You're testing like
if you
problem.
Yeah, you definitely, absolutely.
You give the
Early
pain
on,
speech,
if you go out and we're running out of time.
What you're trying to figure out is how big a big problem causes a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Is
If
it a
you show
little
them
pain
your
or big
product,
pain?
they're going to say nice things about your product.
Right,
They're going to say
right.
nice things
So you wanna
about
find
you,
the
and you don't
problem,
have
not
any
you want
evidence.
this.
If they, on their own, say, I got a problem here,
Right.
without you spurring them to think about that, I mean, that's gold. You're
So
starting
would
to
you
get.
recommend starting like that and doing kind of like where you just kind of chit chat with people just to make sure like, this is
Absolutely.
real,
Absolutely.
and then move on
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
maybe.
At some point, you got to talk about your
You
product.
have some focused questions, but you're not selling them anything.
Oh,
It's more
absolutely.
like, well, how do you
Yeah.
find a parking?
Well, if you're doing parking and you're talking to campus students, I'd catch people in the morning on their way to class, okay? And I'd walk with them and say, hey, where'd you park? Find out. Campus, find that out pretty quickly.
How would you like document this?
Just keep notes.
This is all up to you.
This is all up to
This
you.
is purely up to you. The value only matters to you.
Yeah.
Okay? So any way possible. There is a tool to do it. There are some tools to do it. that we could share and try to make available. But frankly, I think, your seat of the pants estimate probably works.
You'll find out, so everybody that's been through the Lean Launchpad, so Lean Launchpad's kind of like the pinnacle of doing this, right? And so everyone they loved it. They hated it the first 3 or 4 weeks, and then once they started doing it and got
And then at some point, you
got
gotta leave it. Some people get tied to this interview, and at some point, you gotta leave it and go make something.
gotta make some
sell it.
decisions, yeah.
But that's the idea. It's this stuff.
Say it one more time. Well,
The number
camera
one
side.
thing, I think, to succeeding is here, and I've messed this up completely. So I got to fix this. Dan, did you notice how I had my whole thing reversed? The number one thing is
The right
customers,
side.
the right side. I had it on the left. Okay, good. The customer segment value proposition in this little channel of love that goes between the two. If you can come in and convince the people in the first 2 minutes that you found a true problem with true customers that truly care, and maybe you do that by an example. Here's Mark, and Mark was crying when we came in because he couldn't park his car and he missed an important meeting or whatever. Okay, you're onto something, got it? And guess what? That's replicable. We found 20% of the people here couldn't park. That's number one.
And you're gonna hear us say this a little bit, so what you get with those two, like I say, Steve's like me,
I messed
he
it
can
up.
be sometimes PowerPoint deficient, right? So the link between your value proposition, what do you have that people want, and your customer segment is called product market fit.
Yeah, product
Once
market
you achieve that, you'll
You're
be
basically
surprised
there.
how
Yeah.
everything else falls into place.
Yeah.
That's the hard
Yeah,
part.
it's- Okay, number two, I think for EagleWorks is kind of down here. I put it down here. Kind of revenue
Little bit,
screens and
yeah.
costs, because they're going to look at those numbers. And I'll tell you the other thing is I'm trying to think about market opportunity. And I thought that revenue stream was partly,
Competition.
competition, how much money. I mean, am I talking something that's going to generate, a couple $100,000 a year, yawn, or something that's going to generate millions per year if I can get it started? Hey, in Cookville, I can sell 50,000 in Cookville, and think how many Cookvilles there are. That gets exciting. I think that's, and to some degree, I think it's down here.
And what are the margins too? I mean, if you have like a million
Of course, margins,
but it
man.
costs you
People
millions
tend to
produce.
look though, the funny thing is if you can turn money, the margins show
Right.
up. That's why all these small companies, as long as they can get customers, and it doesn't even matter money, if I can get people using it, I can figure out a way to extract value to someone. So our world is changing. Then number three, and I've got this all flipped, I think if you got a number three thing is going to be how I go about connecting my customers to the product. And then kind of a fourth, if you had it, actually maybe a tied with three, and then I would just frankly not worry about much else, would be a key partner. I think if you can show up, if you could show up at EagleWorks with a partner that's kind of an eye-opener, I think that'd be great. There's no guarantee, but could you find somebody, like Tennessee Tech, we're willing to commit. We will do a trial version, somebody commits. If you get that, I think that'd be the last one, I didn't list it. Okay.
And something that kind of strikes me here is everything that they're saying here is if you go out and watch Shark Tank, it's the exact same thing that they plan
Exactly.
on. Everybody will, the businesses that fail in there will come in there, and what will happen? Mr. Wonderful will say, well, how in the world is this differentiated, or how is there a market?
Yeah.
How is this, how is this any different? How are you going to sell this? You're making your numbers up. Everything that they've said here, go out and watch Shark Tank, and we'll start actually posting some of the better and worse clips. But it's really, that's what they're asking them for. How are we going to sell this thing? How are you going to make money? It's as simple as that.
And the nice thing is, I think that we could answer those things. Like you said, how do we know it's differentiated? Well, if it's not a pain, if there's a product out there, it's not a pain. And I'll tell you one thing, you'll find all the time, man, I hate professors. I have no way to, to store my files or to present. My goodness, they invented computers a while ago, right? There are certain people that are not going to use your product. If you pull that person, some old guy, and put a picture of them up there, and this person doesn't know how to communicate with his loved ones, it's like, yeah, he's never going to use the product.
So if the answer to your
Anyhow,
questions are my customers are stupid, I got news for
Exactly.
you. You're in trouble.
You're the one that's in trouble.
Yeah. And through that customer discovery process,
They
when
just
you're doing
don't
your
understand.
interviews, you very well may find out, and Corey will probably back me up here, you're going to find out that what you had in mind at first is not at all what they wanted, and you very well may find out a completely different problem to solve through your
And
thing.
it's your startup.
Right.
If you think a customer is just out of line and you don't agree, just ignore it.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, you're going to get lots of information. Your company lives or dies on how you make a decision, you know, and you just got to make the call. You know, you'll talk to 10 people and 5 will tell you one thing and 5 will tell you the other. What are you going to do with that information? It's really completely up to you. I mean,
And understand, half your decisions are probably gonna be wrong,
yeah.
but they don't have to be dead.
But the
you know.
point is, I think that you could easily see, we could sit down and construct this without any of the information, even though the information is guaranteed going to be difficult to interpret. Better to have it than not. Okay,
So-
we have an exercise
Yes.
that we wanted to do.
Yes.
And Jeff, wonderful Jeff, actually brought the stuff. And
Oh,
I
you
know
did?
you got some. Yes,
Great.
he did.
I
know you
think I
got-
brought
You got
15.
some.
We went
Okay,
up to
excellent.
You got the.
We'll work on that one.
So
the
how
sentence,
do we
right?
want to do this? So what we thought we would do is, I don't think we want to spend too long, but we thought we would get a couple, we'll do a couple cases. So we're going to hand out some business model canvases. Go ahead and work in a group if you want. If you've got an idea and you're willing to
Really,
start,
3 or 4 people do. really
yeah,
well.
if you're, we can do this in one of two ways. You can either, you've got your product, and you can start to say, hey, convince the people around you to work on